Hi everyone and welcome to this week's garden update. Before we get stuck into it, I did want to just mention one thing very quickly, which is really exciting. I was just over watering my lilies, which are growing in pots, and guess what I spotted? A blue-tongued lizard. Such a joy to see one of those creatures in the garden because I know they'll really help keep the snails and slugs under control. Okay, so for this week's garden update, we're going to take a look down in the fan garden, which is looking very different. It's kind of gone back a few steps. I'll explain that a bit later on. Plus, I'm going to share with you a recipe for whole lemon lemonade. But before we do all of that, let's go and see what the chucks have been up to. This is my favourite spot in the garden at the moment, and it looks like the girls are enjoying this little section of my patch too. I'm not quite sure what Autumn is eating there. It looks like maybe some kind of radish or turnip that's going to seed. Here comes the rest of the gang to join in. Like, really, I should be getting them out of that bed. I have a few little seedlings in there and I need to get these girls out before they completely dig them up. It doesn't look like my sticks are working today. See, I have all these sticks here. You zoom out a bit so you can take a better look. And it looks like they've maneuvered their way in between them. Ah, well, these things happen. A few of the Dutch irises have opened up. They were still closed last week when I last gave you an update, but I'm happy to see that some of them are blooming now. Dutch irises are actually a hybrid which were created back in the 19th century by a Dutch bulb company. They are a very popular bulb here in Australia, and you can often find them being sold in garden centres in late autumn, winter time, where you can buy big packs. I usually tend to buy them in packs of like 30 or 40 so that I'm able to create really nice large drifts of them. I find that they come back year after year. So when I do buy more of them, it's just really to add to the collection that I already have here in my cottage garden. Once these flowers are finished, what I do is I come in with my secateurs, following the stem down as far as I can, and I just snip it off there, leaving behind this lovely green strappy foliage, which makes a really nice feature even though the blooms have passed. Last week I showed you one of my Australian native climbing plants, a Pandorea ruby bell. Here I've got another variety of Pandorea. This one is called Snowbells. I'd say there's about a quarter of the flowers opened up at this stage, but next week I'm hoping to show you this plant where it's absolutely covered in a flush of trumpet-shaped white blooms. There's a bit of a surprise up here. Do you notice anything missing? Just over in this spot, the Grevillea robusta has gone. So I did show it to you a couple of weeks ago. It got really badly damaged in a storm where one of the branches was just completely dangling. And this week the arborist came to remove the rest of it. I never like taking down trees, but it just wasn't safe anymore. And now it's just a big empty spot up there. But thankfully I've got plenty of other trees in the garden to keep the wildlife happy. And as you can imagine, removing a tree that size requires a lot of equipment and access to the area, which is in here in the fan garden. So you can see the archway had to be taken down. It's looking very different, and the ground in here is kind of been messed up a bit. But it's all good because I knew this was going to happen. So the night before, I got stuck in digging up some of my little plants in there and bulbs to make sure they were nice and safe and away from any heavy machinery or any fallen branches. Here are some of those plants that I temporarily removed. I've also got this container of Achillea, and down here are some of my gladioli bulbs. I am just really happy I dug these out because they would have been completely trampled on. I'm back down at the entryway, so I will put a new archway in here. I need to fix up my rose, I need to mulch it. There's actually quite a large amount of work to do in here, which I'm trying not to get overwhelmed about. I'm just going to do a bit at a time. Here is the tree all mulched up, and I'll be able to use this around the garden, especially I'm thinking in the raised garden bed area where I can put it along the pathways, which will really help to suppress any weeds and will just make the area look a bit prettier. There are so many more flowers over here beside the lemon tree on my other Pandorea, which is the Australian native climber. I showed you this one last week. It is called Ruby Bell. There are hundreds of them. This part has actually attached itself to the lemon tree, which is a little bit cheeky. And speaking of lemons, I'm going to share with you now my recipe for making whole lemon lemonade. Yes, you've heard me correctly. I'm going to use this entire lemon, if I can get it off, in this recipe. Well, I've actually gone a step ahead of myself, but what I do is I get the whole lemon, pop it into a pan along with 2 cups of water and 1 cup of sugar, bring it to the boil and then let it simmer for 1 hour. This is what I've done here, and you can see that the sugar and the water turns into this kind of syrup and the lemon gets nice and soft. You can see here that the lemon gets really squishy. So the next step is to blend this whole mixture up. If I had a decent blender, I could probably get it to a more finer consistency, but really with this recipe that isn't much of an issue at all. And that is because I'm now going to pass it through this sieve. Oh my goodness, hold on, don't want to lose any of it. Okay, I've managed to fix that up. I'm now just using a spoon to help this liquid mixture go through the fine mesh. You can see that the larger lumps are too big to pass through, which is kind of what we want to happen here. And once I've done all of this, I'll be able to lift it up, which I'm almost done. Probably do a couple of more little turns, and we'll just lift this up, and you can see there that we have this lovely thick sweet syrup type consistency, which we can use to make our lemonade. I just grabbed myself a wine glass, filled it with ice, and garnished it with one of my slices of dehydrated lemon. I'm going to pour in a little bit of the syrup and then just top it all up with some sparkling water. It's a really lovely, refreshing beverage to enjoy on this beautiful spring day. It's been a few weeks since I gave you an update on the Pride of Pandorea, the echium, and if I come in a bit closer you can see there's already a little bee over there on it. There's quite a few now flowering. They're not as spectacular as last year, I have to say. They're a little bit smaller, but I guess that happens as the plant kind of ages. Fortunately enough though, I have a few new baby plants which have grown quite substantially, like this one here, which hopefully will keep the lovely show of flowers going now for the next few years, as this one, which is getting very leggy, you can see there, will probably finish up soon. I think they only last for about 5 years or so, but it's still keeping the bees happy, which is great to see. I'm over here by the little greenhouse where I have all of my plant babies, and there are actually a few new additions since I gave you an update a couple of weeks ago. This tray is new. I sowed it about maybe roughly around 10 days ago. It's full of different types of zinnias and cosmos too. It looks like it's drying out a little bit, so I need to give it a spray with the hose. I feel like this year I've been able to give my seedlings the best attention. And that is because I'm home 24/7 with the lockdowns. So I'm able to come out here every hour, depending on how hot the day is, and give all these a light mist spray to keep them nice and moist. However, when I'm living my normal life, you know, having to go out and do errands, I may be away from home for a few hours, it's a hot day, and I've got all my baby seedlings, they can very easily dry out. So what I usually do with them is placing these in trays of water, which stops the need for me to be so attentive to them because they are receiving all the moisture they need from the bottom up. I still need to sow all my melons, cucumbers, pumpkins, zucchinis and squash. I really want to get them started soon. Maybe that's a good goal for me this week. Have them ready to show you next Friday. Thanks so much for watching till the end. I hope you enjoyed this week's garden update. Remember, if you're new to my channel, I would really appreciate your support by maybe liking this video or subscribing. I do post every single Friday. Until then, everyone, stay safe and I'll see you soon.